The webinar is now live and I see that people are coming in. So happy that you are here today. Welcome to the first Afterglow series of 2021. I hope this year gives you many happy moments. So the Michigan Energy Summit series is a continuation of the Michigan Energy Summit from last year. And we'll be continuing this every Thursday, same time for the next couple of weeks. So make sure you tune in to the Zoom link from the comfort of your couch. But this particular Energy Summit Afterglow series webinar is very exciting today. We're going to be having the topic of how to synchronize your building systems through retrocommissioning. John Nemitz, one of the moderators, he said something that really caught in my memory. He had quoted one of his coworkers that retrocommissioning is inevitable. And that was a really interesting way to frame it, on that we can choose retrocommissioning as a choice, or it's just the natural cycle of a building anyway, so might as well, manage it and take more of an agency over it. So if you could go to the next slide, Audrey, I'd love to introduce you folks. So thank you for being here today. Just to remember to be able to interact with us, the chat will always be going and Q&A is going to be at the end. So make sure you put your questions in Q&A for us to be able to answer them. My name is Jillian Gim. I'm the program manager. You've seen me here every Thursday for almost a year now. And the moderators will be Audrey Ewan and John Nemitz from Consumers Energy. And we have the privilege of having our speakers today, Edna Lorenz from Beaumont Hospital, Andrew Luzenski from Peter Basso Associates, and Hillary Vadnal from Trane. Without further ado, John and Audrey, please take it away. Thank you everybody for coming in.
Thank you very much. We're pleased that we can have this opportunity to talk about retrocommissioning to all our customers and our trade allies and our interested parties. We have three great people on the staff on the panel today. Edna Lorenz, she's the system energy manager at Beaumont. Beaumont won an award last year in healthcare for the biggest loser. It was one of the projects that had used one of our retrocommissioning programs. Andrew Luzenski, he's vice president at Peter Basso's. He's an expert on retrocommissioning. He's worked with our program, with the Facility IQ, the defined actions offering, and he's also worked on the DTE retrocommissioning program, so he has experience in that. Hillary Vadnal, she's the area service manager for intelligence services at Trane, one of our trade allies. She's worked using the defined actions on projects throughout the state during renovations of their buildings. And then obviously I have my co-moderator, Audrey Ewing. She's going to be talking quite a bit about, or representing, the building TuneUp, which will talk a little bit about the offerings at the end of the program. I'd like to kick off with a first question. If maybe Andrew could start. Why did you or your firm want to do RCX work, and walk us through your RCX experience at a high level? Just a minute or two, and then we'll go to Edna and then Hillary.
Okay, thanks, John. Well, as far as why we wanted to get into the retrocommissioning, at Peter Basso Associates, we've always been focused on providing a quality product and a quality design for our clients. And we also want that design to get built properly and function properly. And the way we sought to do that from the very beginning was to commission the project. So we've always offered the service of commissioning on our projects. And then finding out that there's, a rising demand for existing building commissioning, retrocommissioning for, existing buildings where, HVAC systems functionality diminishes over time, and we run into, issues down the road, and it just needs to be looked at again to kind of tune the system back up, bring it back to the design intent, and also ends up saving energy. And that is another thing that we've been focused on with all of our projects is energy efficiency. So it fell right into our realm and our goals for the company. And that's why we decided to have actually the business has grown, and now we have a separate dedicated group towards commissioning and retro commissioning.
I guess I'll jump in now. Again, I'm Edna Lorenz with Beaumont. Beaumont started our current energy management program in 2016. And retro commissioning was a really great way to just kind of get the program off the ground and realize some energy savings really quickly with minimal financial outlay. For Beaumont, the real attraction to retro commissioning was that it was essentially a free assessment and verification, and the only monetary contribution that Beaumont had to make, we didn't have to pay for the consultant, we just had to pay for the implementation of the retro commissioning measures that our consultants came up with. And we initially enrolled 3 hospitals in the retro commissioning program. And went through the year 2016 through 2017. And we saw in the end, we saw about 3% in energy savings from retro commissioning between those 3 hospitals, which may not sound like a lot, but a hospital is a 24/7 operation. We've got a high base load energy consumption use, including lights and all the equipment that a hospital requires in order to keep patients healthy. So that 3% essentially equated to about over $300,000 in cost savings per year. And our return on investment was less than a year for everything that was done. In fact, it was less than half a year. So it really made a lot of sense in terms of ROI, and really the bang for the buck was really exceptional. We have since then participated in other similar utility programs through DTE primarily, but we've also continued engaging with consumers rebate programs as well to help just justify all the energy conservation measures that we're trying to implement at Beaumont across all 8 hospitals.
Hillary?
All right, good morning. My name is Hillary Vadnal, again with Trane. So Trane, we have a presence in a lot of buildings, and we always try to do the best to help our customers save energy. As a global company, our landmark promise is called the Gigaton Challenge. And what it means is we are committed to reducing our global customers' carbon footprint by 1 gigaton by 2030. This is the largest customer climate commitment made by any business-to-business company. And our math shows it could reduce the world energy consumption by 2% annually, which is the total annual emissions of Italy, France, and the UK. So big climate commitment, 2030, happens to line up exactly with what's happening in West Michigan. And really the company is trying to rebrand ourselves as a climate company, right? It's, 100 years history, of mechanical work, and how do we live and thrive in this new environment? So, as a corporation, huge commitment to energy. Our new mission statement, that was adopted a few years ago, that we have banners in all of our offices. Our mission is to reduce the energy intensity of the world. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward, pretty awesome. So why retro commissioning? You might have a building that is initially set up tight, but buildings drift, and sometimes it's just part of a general maintenance. Or like we've seen with COVID, the use changes. You might have had a building that was, up and running 24/7, and now maybe there's this one portion of it that you're running. So you got to look at how are we managing our buildings? How are we, working with schedules and setbacks? And really, Trane's committed to being with our customer from cradle to grave. I mean, it's from the design, it's from the build, but it's through the whole life of the building. That's why we are in this.
Thank you very much, all 3 of you. We'll turn it over to Audrey for a moment, and she'll ask the next question.
Good morning, everyone. So thanks for giving that explanation on why you kind of wanted to dive into retrocommissioning work. I was wondering if we could go around and just briefly touch on also what programs from the consumer's energy side that you participated in, and then just like that process that you went through to participate. I think Edna kind of touched on it a bit, which is wonderful, and love to hear that energy savings. But just wanted to give the audience a little bit more information around some of the programs. So maybe Edna, if we could start with you and then go to Hillary and Andrew.
Sure. So Beaumont participated in retrocommissioning through actually DTE. So we're in the DTE electric territory. However, we do actively participate with consumers in a lot of their prescriptive programs and defined action program, which we've been able to, I think, piggyback on some of the DTE programs that we've been participating in, specifically the Strategic Energy Management Program that DTE offered. Really aligns well with some of the programs that consumers offers as well. So what's interesting in being in the state of Michigan, depending on the territory you're in, sometimes your utility provider is doing both electric and gas. Sometimes it's one or the other, like, DT is doing electric, consumers is gas. I don't know if it's the opposite anywhere else, but
it's the opposite in Grand Rapids area.
Oh, that's funny. Okay, yeah. So for Southeast Michigan, it's kind of a combo. But yeah, definitely it's generally DT for your electric and consumers for gas. One thing that I found very valuable that consumers offers in our area is their steam assessment. So Beaumont has large steam boilers, and consumers will come in and provide a free assessment to look at energy savings opportunities for steam systems. So it often includes how you're running your boiler, insulation, and help quantify things like that. But again, going back to retrocommissioning, knowing that's something that is offered by both utilities, I think that was a really positive thing for Beaumont, especially getting an energy program off the ground, because retrocommissioning and even like a strategic energy management program really focus on those low to no cost savings opportunities, which was a way to just kind of get some really early wins in for any sort of energy management program. And it was also a way to kind of, Beaumont doesn't officially have a like a green revolving fund or anything like that, but we have started using rebates collected through DTE and consumers to help start fund additional expense projects. So the expense projects would be these low, no cost opportunities that are identified through these retrocommissioning programs. So it's been, it's been very helpful. These rebate programs are really, in my opinion, are a no-brainer for customers to participate in, because it's just a way to reinvest in yourself. So I hope this is all helpful and useful information.
Yeah, absolutely. I think having that kind of customer experience really paints a picture for people. So really appreciate all the information. Hillary?
Yeah, so Consumers has been a tremendous partner in our community, where we clearly align as consumers, customers, our Trane customers. So we will utilize any rebate that's going to help move a project forward. We've done prescriptive, we've done custom. What we've recently participated in is the Defined Actions Program. This one includes some kind of specific facility improvement measures, and it does require that you use consumers modeling tool, but it's still a very aggressive rebate program, and it's really, again, helped just move some of these bigger projects forward that may make sense on their own, but when you throw in that rebate, it's been a no-brainer, and consumers have been right there with us the whole time.
Perfect. Andrew?
Yeah, we've been working with consumers as a trade ally, and also as a service provider for the Retrocommissioning program, which used to be called the Smart Buildings program, and also the Defined Action programs that Hillary spoke of. And when this first came out, we were very excited about the program because we were already providing retrocommissioning type services, energy audits for our clients, and we saw this as a great opportunity for them with the retrocommissioning program, because the fee for the whole investigation is covered by Consumers Energy, which was wonderful for our clients. So anyone who may have been reluctant to pay that first amount just to get the study completed, that no longer was an issue. So we thought that was fantastic and gave us the opportunity to go to clients who were reluctant about that and offer this program to them. And we also think it's a very well laid out, where it has different phases where, first the service provider like ourselves would come to your building and do a whole investigation, review all of your documentation you have on the building, walk through and see all the equipment. And then we would have a report and a menu of items that you can pick from that are all, focused on a low cost, mostly energy savings items that, with quicker paybacks. And then they also help you with the implementation of those items, because we can sit down and we have all the items laid out, and consumers helps with which ones we want to focus on. And then we lay out a plan for it. When can we think this needs to be done, or when can we do this? Should it be done in-house, or should we hire a contractor to complete some of these items? And that process works very smoothly. And then there's a final verification phase where, to prove that, yes, we did complete the items. It might be a little bit different than what we first thought, but that gets documented as what the actual is. And you get to see, how much energy you actually have saved. So we thought the program was wonderful when we saw it. So we wanted to be part of it.
Yeah, and if I could ask a follow-up, Andrew, if you don't mind, would you
Sure.
say most participants lean more towards the smart building, which is now the Facility IQ program, or do you have more participants in defined actions program?
We personally have more projects with the Retrocommissioning program, but we have also participated in the defined actions a little bit, because when we are, a lot of times we are commissioning a building and we will find items that do qualify for that program, and we'll offer that to the owner as well.
Perfect. Thanks. All right, John, I'll hand it back to you for the next question.
Okay. Was the program easy for you to get approval to implement, from us and with the customers? And follow up to that, who is choosing the items that you're going to go forward on? I know our program has certain requirements, but there's still some leeway on that. Who's making the choice? Are you or the decision makers? And what was the driving reason for the implementation of these measures by the various customers? So let's start with you, Edna.
Well, I work with my management to determine what measures would be implemented, also with the site staff, the facilities operators. What was really important for us when we were looking at service providers for any of our measures is to make sure any consultant we're working with is familiar with healthcare facilities, because healthcare facilities have unique requirements with regards to how we operate our HVAC systems. And especially with COVID, things are changing now. So things like outside air rates are maybe increasing on certain air handling units. The requirements for surgical facilities, again, it's going to be different than for a commercial facility. So understanding, making sure that the recommendations that are presented do not conflict with our regulatory requirements for providing a safe and healthy environment for healthcare procedures was really important. But once all of that was kind of vetted out, we then look at the return on investment. And for retrocommissioning measures, and kind of for standard retrocommissioning measures in general, the return on investment was very attractive when when partnered with this retrocommissioning program or a strategic energy management program. Essentially we're just paying for our controls contractor to implement a lot of these measures, because these low cost measures are typically unless something's broken out in the field, they're typically related to your building automation system and the programming behind the scenes, regarding how that equipment is operating. So that sequence of operation is generally what's being tweaked in order to get that improved energy performance. So So again, it's important that, we worked with people who understood hospitals and understood how they work, but, getting the program approved by consumers in DT, given that we were a healthcare organization with large, energy consuming buildings, and, it was a very quick process to get those applications approved by the utilities. And then it was, a pretty easy sell for my management, given that they had an energy reduction commitment to sign on to these programs as well.
Hillary?
Yeah, kind of what Edna and I are in different parts of the state, so we don't directly work together, but kind of what she said is very similar. We're on the other side of that. I mean, the customer is always, the final decision maker. It's, they're always, the ones driving which ones they want to move forward with or not. But when rebates are in the mix, it really helps getting the job approved. And, simple economics, the larger the fraction of the job is paid for by the rebate, the easier it is, for our customer to get that, through their higher ups, hey, there's money sitting on the table. Who's going to argue with that? But it's, not only are they lowering their energy intensity, but a lot of times it's upgrading their mechanical equipment or just, simply maintenance costs.
Andrew?
Yeah, normally we're a consultant with the owner, so we don't make the decision on what gets implemented. But I will say that is one of the more difficult parts of the process, is trying to get these items actually implemented once the list is there. There's sometimes, reasons why they don't want to do it, or they get the study, they read it, and it doesn't go any further from there. And I will say, working with consumers and doing this through one of these programs kind of helps engage the owner a little more into, kind of having a set goal to complete the items. And it really does help facilitate that process and get it actually done. And we realize the savings.
Yeah.
I just want to end it up and say that really what consumers' goal is for the customer to take action. We're helping provide information for them, a way to save energy, but the most important thing for us is that they actually take action and implement measures that we have identified. Audrey?
Thanks. We actually had a question come through the chat. So if you guys don't mind, I'd like to address it. I think it's a really good question. So someone asked, rebates add money, which is wonderful. It's a great driver, but does it also add credibility? And I feel like this is something that John and I do talk about when it comes to having that conversation with trade allies. But I think it is good to kind of circulate this around the panel here. So Hillary, maybe if I could start with you on that one.
Yeah, I would say absolutely. I mean, it's, it's one thing for whatever the, trying to talk about it, but if consumers has said, yes, this is one of the key areas that we want to move forward with as far as our energy savings portfolio, that absolutely adds credibility.
Yeah. And then Andrew or Edna, if you have anything additional.
I'll just make a quick comment on it.
Yeah.
One of the things that we're trying to do as a utility is be sort of a neutral source and say, hey, we've brought these experts in that on one hand, they're trying to sell a product, but we're trying to take that sales out of it and give you sort of more pure, unbiased information to make decisions on.
Yeah, and I'd say as a consumer, it's when working with these programs and working with the consultants through these rebate programs, it's nice to know or have that assurance that the consultants you're working with have been pre-vetted. So you're not just, it's not like getting a cold call from a consultant being like, oh, we can save you, X amount of money. It's nice to know that here's a program that has been vetted by consumers and has oversight by a third party, and is shown to have 2 to 5% energy savings. So you can it's a lot easier sell to an energy manager who can then take that to my management and say like, hey, this is a program that like we can feel pretty confident in saying we'll at least get 2% energy savings for participating and investing in this. So it is, yeah, definitely having the utility rebate program behind this, it just makes it a lot easier to sell to the upper management.
That's a good point, Edna, too. And I think it is good to know that, this program has been around for a long time now. And it's a proven program. It does work. People do get the energy savings, and we find the low cost items. The service providers are experienced, engineering firms or energy audit firms that you can count on are going to do a good job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, thank you guys for that. And even so, like as you said, Andrew, the programs have been around for a while, and consumers is also expanding. So I'll touch on it at the end. I know John mentioned the new program that was launched last spring, which is the Building TuneUp program. So I'll give a brief overview of that. And, there's always the potential for additional opportunities here in the future as we kind of look to see what new innovative ideas we can bring to the market to help push customers to obtain higher energy savings. So I have one other question and then I'll give it back to you, John. I'm just curious how you felt it was to kind of work with consumers overall. Was it easy to sign up to be a trade ally specifically for, you, Andrew, and Hillary? And then Edna, just on the rebate side, how was it? Was it an easy process? Was there any kind of words of advice, if you will, as you went through that process? So Andrew, if you don't mind if I start with you.
No, that's fine. I thought it was a very smooth process, very simple process. It's well defined in the beginning. That we have the investigation stage, implementation, and verification. It's very simple. And one of the things I like about it is, we find many items on the list, and I think, you're required to do a certain number of them in order to participate in the program. But I think Consumers Energy is very flexible with that. Like Edna was saying about hospitals, we can't turn equipment off at a hospital. It needs to run 24/7. So there's important things that they can't change. So I think Consumers is very respectful of that and flexible with the owner in trying different things and picking the right items that work for them, that they're comfortable with doing, and works for the owner.
Yeah. Hillary?
Yeah, Trane's experience has really been that Consumers is your partner. I mean, they're there to coach you through the process, and it's very clear to me that their goal is to get the measurement through and the rebate paid. It's not, one could think, hey, you didn't dot this T, we're not going to give you the rebate. No. They are your advocate. They are there to, hey, you missed this part, make sure you put this in, just remind you of what paperwork, what are the deadlines. Prescriptive rebates, very easy, very straightforward. We haven't had any hiccups with those. Custom are a little bit harder, a little bit more pre-approval, mainly because there's just hard data that's required. But overall, it's a very manageable process, and I really appreciate Consumers' partnership.
Wonderful to hear. Yeah. And then Edna?
It's been great. I mean, working with Consumers has been great. They want to help us save energy because it helps meet their goals. And so really, working with John has been really great in the past on a lot of the defined measures, working with their calculator. I know a lot of consultants work with the calculator. I did it myself. So helping coach me through that as well. Making sure I'm entering in the right information so that we're maximizing the energy savings that we're reporting, so we can maximize the energy rebates that we're getting back from consumers. so it's been really helpful. I think the various folks from different aspects of the organization frequently reach out to me to be like, hey, are you doing any projects regarding this? Can we help you look at that? So I think they're highly engaged in helping us reduce our demand, which I assume just helps helps them and helps our utility infrastructure in general. We're all out here trying to do the same thing and reduce energy consumption, and I really do think working with the folks at Consumers and Nexent and all the service providers, it's been really very easy, and they bend over backwards to help the customer, I feel, really meet their goals.
Perfect. Awesome. I love that. Thank you, guys. John, I'll give it back to you for the next one.
Okay, we had a question that came in through the chat about the are there any hidden costs for customers and the like? Really, because we are providing the service, there is some work that has to be done internally. We usually sort of say at a minimum, there's probably going to be about a 20-hour commitment from the principals and staff to get information, show the provider or the trade ally around the building and work with it. So it's a useful 20 hours. However, it's a interactive type of thing. It's not just filling out paper. It's usually a discussion type 20 hours. So I guess sort of the next question, a little bit oriented to the trade allies, is, and maybe to you to a certain degree, Edna, has this program helped increase your business? Has Edna, has it helped you get more projects, through or start more projects? Let's start with Andrew.
Thanks, John. Yeah, definitely it has. Like I was talking about before, some of the clients who may not have been, willing to put forth the cost for the retro commissioning services in the first place, that now is no longer an issue with the program. That fee is covered by Consumers. So that gives them an opportunity to try the program and try to get some energy savings. What we've seen is that we started at SVSU, and we did a couple of buildings there, and that once they saw the results of that and they saw how much energy they were able to save, and they wanted to do it again. So they wanted to now do the rest of the campus. So for us, we got to see repeat clients, who saw the program, did it one time and really appreciated it and saw the benefit of it and wanted to continue on. So we did that with a few of our clients and just have been doing multiple buildings for them. So for us, it has been increased work for us and more retro commissioning services that we can provide for our clients.
Hillary?
Yeah, with Trane, absolutely, it's helped us increase our sales. I think a big thing is it takes a lot of the uncertainty out of the jobs. It can really help like that with 2020 and COVID, a lot more uncertainty. But there were some opportunities that were too good to leave on the table. So it really helped drive those projects. And it kind of what Andrew was saying, it does help build trust, and hey, when you get one program through and wow, we were able to get this rebate through and save a lot of money and energy, this is fantastic. So it's, win-win.
The other thing, if I can add too, the items that we find too, if they do actually qualify for a prescriptive rebate from Consumers on top of the retro commissioning services that cover, they still do get the rebate for those items too if they implement them. So
for example, adding a VFD to an air handler that doesn't have one, that's a prescriptive measure. If Andrew identifies it, you're still eligible to go get that incentive. Edna, any increased work for you because we have these programs?
I like the word trust. That both Andrew and Hillary mentioned. For me, it was about building trust with the building operators. And the retrocommissioning program, I think, it kind of gave our energy management program a bit of gave it some legs essentially, because we were able to, for very minimal cost, bring in some experts and recommend some energy conservation measures, implement them, and have the support with the staff, to help provide the education about how these measures were supposed to work. And then, actually see energy savings. And, I've seen some of the hospitals where, initially there was a lot of resistance to changing the way they operate their equipment, seeing the improvement that these energy conservation measures do, have in the energy consumption of the building. Also tangentially, getting operators enrolled in the building operator certification program, which consumers also does incentivize. And basically now I have advocates at these hospitals that are like, yeah, let me see what else I can identify so that we can help reduce the energy consumption of these buildings. So I do think it's really helped, really get that our energy management program off the ground. And then, just having these, kind of prescribed requirements for these programs also just really, I think, decreases the timeline for getting energy conservation measures implemented. Because if we know we're going to get, 4 or 5 cents a kilowatt hour for implementing a retrocommissioning measure, we're going to do it and actually see the energy savings and have that positive result sooner than if it was just, more of a willy-nilly, like identify one measure here, try to get it implemented with no support from either, a consultant or a utility provider behind it.
Okay. Audrey?
Thanks. Yeah, I hope you don't mind. I did want to kind of go back, just briefly touch on that one question from, looks like Michael. I know, John, you pretty much addressed it as far as, what the usual time commitment is, but I was wondering if, Edna, if you could just kind of expand on your process as far as what information you had to provide. So it looks like the question is kind of around, what access did you have to provide, data, documentation, so different data requests. So if you could maybe just give some examples around that, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, so the process usually involves an initial walkthrough, but usually there is quite a bit of follow-up after the walkthrough. We do try our best to provide any as-built documentation that we have of our building HVAC systems. If we have schedules, if we have ventilation drawings, electrical drawings, we do try to provide that. And that can be quite an effort, because if your facility, much like a hospital, is built up over time. So you add a wing here, you add a wing there, like a couple floors there. You have shelf space that you build out one year, and then, actually fill in another year. So it can be quite an effort to gather that documentation. And in some cases, the documentation doesn't exist if you go back far enough. So, so that itself can be quite time consuming. And I would say that is a hidden item. The other thing is I think there is time for the staff to show folks around, but there also needs to be time accounted for actually educating staff. So if one facility staff person is showing up to the meetings, making sure that person or someone else from the team is educating the rest of the facility staff who are going to be sitting in front of the building automation system. Who say, like, why is this discharge air temperature higher than it was before? Making sure that people aren't just overriding your energy conservation measures because they just aren't aware that that's what's been implemented. I think that's an important aspect. But really, with these programs, I think the biggest commitment is time. There is, cost associated with potentially bringing in a controls contractor as well. The Trane, we use multiple controls contractors. So the pricing, is a little bit variable between those. But again, like that's factored into our ROI, our return on investment. So we generally see that cost itself isn't the limiter. It's more the time and the education of employees that I think is really what you might consider like that quote unquote hidden cost.
Got it. Okay, thanks. Yeah, and that leads into, I think, a good follow-up. I think everyone kind of hit on it briefly in the prior question that John asked. But what are some of the benefits? So obviously we talked about energy savings, we talked about short ROIs, which is great. And then also, if you wouldn't mind, what are some of the barriers? So we talked about, pulling out all the data that's required, educating your team members and staff, et cetera. But I'm just curious if there's any other kind of benefits you guys would like to address or barriers as well. So we'll start with Hillary, if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah. Kind of in line with what Edna was saying, but in some ways it's helping change culture. That can be a corporate culture. How people look at buildings, but it can also be a regional culture. This dovetails into the goals of the 2030 district, and that's as a community, that's a different culture. So that's going to be a little benefit, and it's really just helping owners run their buildings more efficiently.
Andrew?
Yes, I would say it's very important for the owner to be a team and be able to provide the information that we, the service providers, are looking for. One of the big ones is we want to look at the temperature control system. We want to see the temperature controls drawings. If they have them, we would like to see screenshots. Sometimes we actually get remote access to the BMS system so that we can monitor that whenever we want from the office at different times of the day to watch how the systems are working throughout, different days of the week or different times of the day, which is very helpful. But it is important for everyone to be on that same team so that everyone knows what we're doing, and we don't have people who aren't in the loop and change something back that we've changed and made the implementation on. So if everyone's part of that team and we're all on the common goal, that's great. So that is one of the I guess, like Edna said, barriers or hidden cost.
Yeah, that's a great point. Edna, any other last thoughts on that?
No, I think we've already touched over everything, and I think honestly participating in one of these programs should be a no-brainer for most building owners, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, John.
Okay, kind of getting near the end here. Want to ask each of you, what's one takeaway you'd like to leave with the attendees today? And then after you're through, I kind of have a follow-up question to make it a little more contemporary. Let's start with you, Andrew. One takeaway. I guess
as a takeaway for today, I would say that if you're a building owner who is interested in making your building, improving the functionality of the building and saving energy, going through one of these programs is a very good start. It's a low risk, a low cost way to go about doing it and get your foot in and get your feet wet and start looking at some of the items you can do to save energy at your buildings.
Edna?
Yeah, again, as a building owner and an energy manager for a corporation, I think these are really great programs to get started. Get started on any sort of energy manage or energy savings program. Like Andrew said, it's a low financial layout, and in some ways, I don't want to say a hard guarantee, but there is a little bit of a guarantee that you will see some energy savings if you participate, per the instructions of the program. So But you know, there are some caveats. There is going to be some time that you need to allocate, and then you need to also have the right infrastructure in place to really fully take advantage of that. And I think that's maybe one thing I should have mentioned before, is that if you don't have a fully functional building automation system, some of these programs might not be completely applicable. But if you have a fully automated building, you know, these rebate programs, these retrocommissioning programs are definitely going to be a good starting place for you.
One follow-up question for the three of you, particularly with a lot of shutdowns, a lot of built-in configuration changes and the like. What do you see the future is for restarting buildings and retrocommissioning being an integral part of that? Let's start with you, Edna, particularly since you're in a 24/7 environment.
So not much shutdown actually at Beaumont, though you know, back in March things did stop quite a bit, but you know, Beaumont was in a state of constant readiness, and is still in that state, I would say, in terms of the facility staff. So nothing really shut down, but it did give us a chance to kind of look at what our base loads were and see, you know, how equipment was operating. So there really was no, you know, plan for starting things back up, because things never really shut down.
Hillary?
I would say a big focus on indoor air quality. Trane has a whole basically research division who, with the advent of COVID, has, you know, really researched what is indoor air quality, what does this look like. And unfortunately, some of the indoor air quality measures are going to be negative for energy savings. You know, if you want to increase your outdoor air or something along those lines, that is going to have an energy impact, but obviously have to have a healthy building first. So there, you know, it's going to be evolving. You know, we might be taking a step back, but then takes 3 steps forward again. But I would just say overall indoor air quality.
Andrew?
I agree absolutely with Hillary that one of the big items that's going to come out of this is now the amount of outdoor air we're going to want to bring into the buildings. We're going to want to increase that. I think that's what the recommendation has been, to dilute viruses, keep the indoor air quality at a high level. I also see potential increases in the need for humidity. I think people will be considering raising humidity levels, which is going to cause some additional cost to these buildings, and some thought about, you know, if I want to humidify at high levels, am I going to have problems with condensation or things like that? So yeah, I mean, as far as energy and retrocommissioning, those types of things are going to increase the energy consumption. So,
so really, we're going to need retrocommissioning to help optimize bringing outside air in, humidity, virus containment, and the like. And if you're doing it on your own, you may be making some mistakes. That's why we're bringing some expertise from the outside will help quite a bit. So I'll throw it over to Audrey. She's going to sort of finish us up with kind of going through our offerings and going from there.
Yeah, thanks. Let me share my screen again. So I only have 2 slides, so this will be quite brief, but just wanted to give an overview of the programs that, you know, we've spent a good bit of time talking about, which are the ones on the outsides, so the facility IQ and defined actions, and then just a minute touching on the newer program, if you will, which is the one in the middle. So facility IQ, as we've mentioned, offers a free study. So this is more for larger customers, you know, as Edna, you know, as a hospital, that's a great example of a good customer for this program. It's a very detailed study. So, you know, the engineering firm will come in and walk through that investigation. You will implement those measures, and then at the end, complete that verification, as others on the panel here were discussing as far as the process goes. It's up to $40,000 per project and $120,000 for each customer. And then for the building tune-up program, so this is a new program that was launched last spring, so spring of 2020. It offers a free study. It's set up just a little bit different in that the engineers are actually in-house, if you will. So you don't have to select an outside firm. We'll come in, do that study. This is more targeting mid-sized customers. So really just looking to make it a more streamlined approach, if you will. And then at the end, once your energy savings measures are implemented and verified, there is another rebate offering of 5 cents a kilowatt hour and $6 per MCF. And then if you'd like, we're trying to take a new approach for that program this year as well, where we have the controls contractor on site while we're doing the investigation to, again, help make the process as streamlined as possible. Make it easier for you, the customer, less communication that you may have to handle with your contractor, and then potential to earn that rebate faster as well. And lastly is the defined actions program. So I think as we kind of touched on during this panel discussion today, it's really specific measures. So there's 16 measures. There's a specific tool or model, if you will, that you'll have to utilize to estimate the savings. This is for any facility, 15,000 square feet or larger. It doesn't matter if you're gas only, electric only, or combo, any of those would apply. And the rebate is 5 cents a kilowatt and $6 per MCF as well. So that is the very high level summary. All that information is found online. Jillian has put that link in the chat. So it's consumersenergy.com/retrocommissioning. Or feel free to email us directly. So you can email us at retro-commissioning@cmsenergy.com. Also, you can see John and my email addresses and phone numbers. Please reach out if you have any questions. We're happy to work with anyone, whatever their individual situation may be, and make sure that we can meet their needs and help them however best we can. John, anything I missed there?
Oh, you did a great job. Again, we have offerings for any size buildings. If you have an idea that you'd like to get us involved, get a hold of us. We'll sort of adapt things to help you save energy, see if we can get you some incentives in the process, at least get you great information to work with. We did have a question in the chat about providing reassurance with the measurement and verification. That's part of the reason that we use some of these standardized calculators. These calculators have been vetted elsewhere in the country. We know that their results are conservative, so information that we would give you on measure savings would generally be very conservative, and hopefully you would get even more savings in the end. And I guess we can open the chat up for a few more questions if anybody has additional questions. I want to say thank you to all three of the panelists. You were excellent representatives of your firms and for our program. I've enjoyed working with all three of you over the years. So, and I look forward to doing even more work. And again, congratulations to Edna for one of their buildings winning in the Biggest Loser competition last year.
Yes, thank you. Thank you everybody for speaking today. And John and Audrey, you were amazing moderators. And there was questions just coming through on the chat, and I think you got the one in the Q&A. There was one that came to me privately. If we could answer this in a timely manner, was there ever an instance where a retrocommissioning surprised the customer? I think what they're saying.
Every time.
Yes?
Every time.
Could you tell us a little story to end the webinar on that?
Andrew, if you could tell that story about the air handler door, I think that's a good one.
That's the one I was thinking of, John. Yeah. There was an air handling unit that was installed right up against an exterior wall.
Oh, no.
And the unit happened to have access doors on both sides of the unit. So there was an access door that you really couldn't open because it was only about 6 inches away from the wall.
Right.
Well, we were walking around this room and air's blowing all over the place. So we're wondering where's this air coming from? That door was actually in the fan section, which is positively pressurized, and had been blown open and hit the wall. So it was just cracked open, but we were blowing a considerable amount of air directly into the mechanical space. We were heating it up, cooling it down, and none of it was going into the building at all.
Oh my God.
So that was that was a huge savings just to close that door. So it shows you that there are very low cost things that do come up that save a lot of energy.
Oh, I love that story. I'm sure they were very grateful to finally get to the bottom of that too. So to get a hold of Hillary and Andrew, you have the information right in front of you. Audrey, could you click back one quick time? Just in case anybody else wants to take one last screenshot. Here is John and Audrey's information. I think everyone knows my information by now, but I'll put it in the chat too, I guess. And so if you can go to the other way, Audrey, I just want to thank you one last time to each of you for speaking today. Audrey, John, Andrew, Edna, Hillary, all 5 of you were incredible, and I'm looking forward to being able to invite you back next time. So everybody on the call, excuse me, everybody on the call, tune in again for the Thursdays at this time. We always have them. And there's going to be a survey coming up, and those are very important to us because they give feedback straight from you. And whatever we see on those surveys, we do try to find an expert who can speak on those. The retrocommissioning, for example, was something that came through the survey that we were able to put together for you. So go ahead and answer that and tell us if there's any technical difficulties too. You know how things go. Our annual meeting is coming up, and don't miss out because we're going to have a lot of fun over Zoom, and it actually is fun. We've been practicing this. No zoomed out for us. The annual meeting has many sponsors for it, some of which are right in front of us. So I want to thank Consumers Energy and DTE, Eagle, and the Wege Foundation for supporting us as an organization, as well as this annual meeting. So if there's any questions coming up, make sure that you email any of us, and we're really glad to have had you. And thank you folks for speaking today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Have a great day, everybody.
Yeah.